Hello, it's Greg. Today, we're going to be putting together a computer. It's going to be the computer that I showed you with the first video that we showed on my channel. A lot of people think building a computer is very hard and very complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. As you can see, these are all the components that we'll be using with our build today. And you can see there's actually not a lot here. It's actually not going to take that long. I'm going to start by giving you an overview of each of the parts, and then we'll actually move on to unboxing and actually constructing an actual computer. So one of the first things when you start with building a computer is actually choosing the components, choosing a price. For this build, we're targeting kind of a mid-range build, around $1,200 or so. So it's going to give you a fairly powerful machine, something you could, game on, or also do some fairly intense video or photo editing or workstation type of work. The biggest decision when deciding to build a computer is what type of processor that you're going to use. That's going to determine what type of motherboard that you can use, and that'll determine a lot of other things that you're going to put into your machine. So what I've selected for our build today is the Ryzen 5 3600X. It's clocked at 3.8 gigahertz. It's got 6 cores and 12 threads. So it's definitely got a good amount of power. It's not overkill. It's not, one of the higher end ones that they have. It's about $200, but it's pretty efficient. It's very good for multitasking. So again, it'll get you very good performance with doing multiple applications. It'll also work well with our video card, which I'll show in a minute. So it'll be able to keep up in games as well as intense video editing and working with large data sets. So the next big thing when choosing a component for a computer is the video card. For our computer today, we've got the Nvidia GeForce RTX 2070. It's a fairly powerful graphics card. It's about 18 months old. 20 series architecture came out, and it came out with a lot of new technology in 2018, but it's still a fairly competitive card. It's got ray tracing on it, and it's got a whopping 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM. So it's going to have plenty of power for any gaming that we want to use it for, as well as any photo editing or visual production, streaming that we want to do, and anything that's high definition or ultra high definition in 4K, it'll be able to handle without a doubt very easily. Moving on to the motherboard. The motherboard is really considered the building block of the computer. Everything that we have, it plugs into the motherboard. And what we have is the MSI X570 Gaming Edge motherboard. And it's specifically compatible with the Ryzen CPU. That's the big thing when choosing your CPU, is finding that compatible motherboard. So, for example, we would not be able to use an Intel chip on this. Only certain types of Ryzen chips are going to work on this. So this is a competitive motherboard. It costs about $200, and it's got plenty of features. Full PCI-Express. It supports the new NVMe M.2 memory, which we'll also be installing, and I'll be covering in a little bit. Supports fast RAM, which is definitely something that the Ryzen CPUs thrive on. Large amounts of RAM that's clocked at a very high speed. And it's got several overclocking features if we want to overclock our CPU in the future. Working our way down, we've got our RAM, which is also pretty important with our machine, because that's one of the most effective ways of improving performance, is making sure that you have enough RAM. And we've selected our RAM through the manufacturer is GeIL, and it's 16 gigabytes, clocked at 3200 megahertz. It's actually got some RGB lighting on it, so it should make our case light up and glow and make it look kind of pretty. And those will get plugged directly into our motherboard. And then we have our hard drive. which is quite smaller than most of the other hard drives you probably have seen. It's a new type of hard drive. It's the NVMe M.2 hard drive. It's super fast. It actually plugs into a PCI slot on the motherboard. So there's no mechanical working parts like the old serial hard drives or SATA hard drives. This one's is 960 gigabytes, so a little less than a terabyte. So one thing, when we're done building this machine, that is one potential upgrade we could do, is add a second hard drive if we do want more storage. And then our final component that will be going into the actual case is our power supply. This is something that's often overlooked when building a computer, but it can also be the component that can sometimes wreck a first-time building a computer. You want to make sure you get a very efficient power supply, one that has, first of all, enough power to power all your components, as well as one that is efficient and is going to be delivering uninterrupted power to all your components. And you can tell by looking at what it's rated at. So this is it's rated at 80 plus gold. When looking at a power supply, you want to be making sure that it's at least rated at bronze. You typically have to pay a little bit more if it's bronze versus silver versus gold. So this one's gold and it's rated at 650 watts. So that should be more than enough power for all of our components. And as you're selecting components, you can usually reference the specifications on your various components to see what type of power supply they recommend. So for this, I looked at the video card or specifications, and what they recommended was a 650 watt power supply. And typically 650 watts should be able to handle anything if we do want to upgrade. As long as we're not upgrading to a really, really high-end video card, we should be able to add other things like maybe additional fans, additional hard drives, liquid cooling in the future. So we do have the additional bandwidth to support that. And then finally, obviously the most cosmetic feature of building a computer is the actual case. And for this build, I chose the Fractal Meshify C case. It's a pretty sturdy case. It's not real expensive. It was about $90. It's aluminum and glass. It's got a glass window here. I've taken the glass out, but you can see inside, so you'll be able to see all of your components once it's fully built and up and running. And then everything else is aluminum and mesh. So you've got mesh in the front, which provides really good airflow. And then you've got mesh up here with actual dust guards. It's almost like a lint guard that you have in your dryer. And you can put that on top to keep dust from getting in. And you also have one on the bottom as well to protect against dust. And then you've also got excellent cable management within. And I'll be calling out those features as we actually start getting into the build. So this kind of covers the overview of all the components. I'll be putting a link to all the various components in the description of the video, so you can go ahead and look and see, get more detail on those components. I will caution that all these components were bought during the COVID-19 pandemic, so prices were really changing a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if they are changing by the time we've posted this video and as the time you may go out and check those prices. So just keep that in mind.